They say the past is a ghost that haunts only those who dare to look back. But what if the ghost has been living in your home all along, smiling, cooking, lying to your face? The front door clicked shut behind me with the same soft whisper it had made 1,000 times before. I stood in the tiled entryway of our ranch-style home outside El Paso, my heels echoing against the cool stone as I searched through my purse for the third time. Nothing. My car keys weren't there. Damn it, I muttered, retracing my steps in my mind. The bedroom. I'd changed my earrings at the last minute, rushing to make it to Mom's birthday lunch on time. The keys had to be on the nightstand. I slipped off my heels, the coolness of the floor seeping through my stockings as I padded toward the staircase. The house felt different in the afternoon light. Too quiet, too still. Usually I'd call out to Marco, let him know I was home, but something held me back. Maybe it was the way the silence seemed to press against my skin, or the way shadows fell wrong across the hallway. Upstairs, I reached the top of the stairs and turned toward our bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap I saw movement. My heart did a small flutter of anticipation. Maybe Marco was home early. Maybe we could talk, really talk, about the distance that had grown between us, like a canyon I couldn't cross. But as I approached, voices drifted through the crack. 2 voices. One was Marco's, low and intimate in a way I hadn't heard in months. The other made my blood run cold. She has no idea, does she? Bianca's voice was soft, almost pitying. My sister, my twin sister, speaking in our bedroom like she belonged there. I pressed myself against the wall, hands trembling. As I fought to breathe quietly, I leaned closer to the narrow opening. I could see them, on our bed. My bed. Marco's shirt was unbuttoned, and Bianca's dark hair spilled across the pillow I had slept on just hours before. Madeline's always been so naive, Marco said, his fingers trailing along Bianca's arm. She actually believed all those late nights at the base. She believed the story about needing space to work on your marriage. Bianca laughed, a sound like breaking glass. She believed everything, just like when we were kids. Remember how easy it was to convince her that Mom loved her just as much as me? My lungs constricted, every breath turning to ice in my chest. Their words weren't just betrayal, they were a demolition of everything I thought was real. Every memory, every smile, every night I lay awake wondering how to fix things. It had all been a lie. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, my back scraping against the textured paint. As I sank to the floor, their words hit like physical blows, each one landing with devastating precision. Then Marco's voice shifted. What about Monica? When are you going to tell Madeline the truth about what your father's will really said? Our father, Bianca corrected, but there was something sharp in her tone. And why would I tell her anything? She's getting exactly what she deserves, nothing. But the lawyer said what I paid him to say, Bianca cut him off. Her voice turned cold. Calculating. Madeline doesn't need to know about the other half of the inheritance. She doesn't need to know about the letters. She doesn't need to know about anything. The world tilted sideways. I pressed my fist against my mouth to keep from crying out, tasting blood where my teeth broke the skin of my knuckle. Letters? What letters? And what inheritance? Dad had died 3 years ago, leaving everything to Mom, or so I'd been told. You're sure Nora won't say anything? Marco asked. Mom's been keeping bigger secrets than this for 30 years, Bianca replied. She's not going to start talking now. Besides, she hates Madeline as much as I do, maybe more. Why? She's her daughter. The silence stretched so long I thought they'd stop talking. Then Bianca spoke again, and her words shattered the last illusion I had left. No, Marco, she's not. I was crumpled on the hallway floor. The next moment I was sitting in my Honda in the driveway, staring at the house I had called home for the past 5 years. My hands trembled as they gripped the steering wheel. Bianca's words echoed in my mind like a death knell. She's not. Not what? Not Nora's daughter? That was impossible. I had birth certificates, baby photos, memories of Mom braiding my hair and reading me bedtime stories. I had 34 years of being Madeline Reyes, daughter of Nora and the late George Reyes, twin sister to Bianca. But even as I tried to convince myself it was all a lie, pieces began falling into place. My breath came in shallow bursts as disbelief tangled with rising dread. I stared blankly through the windshield, not seeing the world outside, only flickering images from my childhood, now tinged with doubt. The laughter at birthday parties, the comforting hugs after nightmares, each now felt staged, scripted for someone else's benefit. I felt like the ground beneath me had vanished, and I was free falling into a truth I hadn't asked for. The foundation of my identity had cracked, revealing questions I didn't know how to answer. There were signs, small ones, the way Mom's face would freeze whenever I asked about my early childhood, the way she and Bianca seemed to share glances and laughter I was never part of, how I always felt like the guest in a home I was supposed to call mine. I drove to the cemetery where Dad was buried, unsure where else to go. The afternoon sun threw long shadows across the marble stones. I knelt beside his grave, tracing the name carved into the stone, George Ray's beloved husband and father. "What did you do, Dad?" I whispered. "What did you do to me?" My phone buzzed. A text from Marco. "Where are you? Thought you'd be back by now." I stared at the message, remembering how he'd touched my sister's skin, the smug cruelty in his voice when he called me naive. How long had they been plotting behind my back? How long had I been the only one who didn't know the truth? Another message followed. "Nora's looking for you." Something about lunch. Mom's birthday, lunch. I had forgotten completely. The thought of sitting across from Nora, pretending nothing had changed, made my stomach knot. How could I face her? Still, beneath the pain and confusion, something deeper pushed me forward. A need for answers. A flicker of hope that maybe there was still truth to be found. I drove to my childhood home, the small ranch house where I had spent years believing I belonged. Nora was waiting in the kitchen, her silver hair styled perfectly, her makeup immaculate despite turning 70 that day. "Madeline, there you are," she said with a practiced smile. I was starting to worry. "Sorry, Mom," I said. "I got held up." She studied my face with sharp brown eyes that had never quite matched mine. "You look pale. Are you feeling okay?" "Just tired." I sat at the kitchen table where I had done my homework, told her about crushes and dreams, cried over college rejections. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said, though her voice tensed. "Do you have any pictures of me as a baby? Like, really early ones?" Her face flickered with something, fear, hesitation, so quick it nearly went unnoticed. "You know I do. They're in the albums upstairs. Not those. I mean from the hospital when I was born." Her hand stopped moving, frozen mid-reach for her coffee cup. "Why would you ask that?" I was thinking about family history. For Marco and me, you know, if we have kids." The lie rolled off my tongue smoother than I expected, but her reaction said everything I needed to know. Her face paled, her fingers trembled. "Madeline, why don't you tell me what's really going on?" I looked at this woman, who had raised me, taught me to ride a bike, helped me choose my wedding dress, and felt my chest hollow out. Who is my real mother? The coffee cup slipped from her hands and shattered on the tile floor, spilling dark liquid across the white surface. "Madeline, please." "Please," I said, my voice cracking, "just tell me the truth." Nora seemed to age before my eyes, her shoulders slumped, her perfect exterior finally fracturing. "How did you find out?" "So it's true?" She nodded slowly. "Your father, he was married before, to Isabella. She died when you were 6 months old." The room spun. "And you were?" I was his secretary. We'd been having an affair for 2 years before Isabella got pregnant." The words spilled out of her like a confession, years in the making. "When she died in that accident, someone had to take care of you. Your father was falling apart, so I moved in." "We got married when you were 2, Nora whispered, "and Bianca is my daughter, mine and your father's." Isabella never knew about her. I felt like I was drowning in quicksand, each revelation pulling me deeper into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "So we're not twins?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. Nora shook her head. "Bianca is 18 months younger than you. We told everyone you were twins." "It was easier than explaining," she added, her voice distant. "Easier than explaining that you destroyed a marriage and stole a dead woman's child." Nora flinched like I'd slapped her. "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "I loved your father, and I raised you. I loved you." "Did you?" I asked, harder than I meant to. "Or did you resent me? Did you hate me because I was a reminder of what you'd done?" "Madeline, please." "What about Dad's will?" I pushed. "What about the inheritance?" Her face went stark white. "What about it?" She said too quickly. What did it really say, Mom? What did it really say? She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, so softly I almost missed it. He left half of everything to you. The house, the savings, the life insurance. Half to you, half to Bianca. But you told me. I told you what I needed to tell you, she said, her voice suddenly firmer. Defensive. You had Marco. You had your own life. Bianca needed my inheritance. She needed security. She needed to know she was taken care of. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound that echoed in the small kitchen. And I didn't? You were always so strong, Madeline, so independent. Bianca was more fragile. More yours, that's what you meant. You saw her as yours, and me as… what? A mistake? A burden you inherited from a woman you replaced. Nora's silence was answer enough. I stood, my legs shaky but holding me. I need to see the original will. Madeline, I don't think… I need to see it now, and I need to see my birth certificate. My real birth certificate. Her shoulders sagged in defeat. They're in your father's study, in the safe behind the bookshelf. I walked through the house that had never really been mine. Past photographs of a family I'd never truly belonged to. Toward truths I'd never wanted to know. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of every lie pressed down on my shoulders. Faces smiled at me from picture frames. But they no longer felt like memories. They felt like props in someone else's story. But as I reached the study door, I heard Nora's voice behind me. Madeline, you have to understand. Everything I did because I loved him. I loved your father so much. I turned back to look at her, this woman who'd given me life and taken it away in the same breath. What about Isabella? I asked. Did you love her too, when you were sleeping with her husband? Nora's face crumpled. She was dying anyway. The answer hit like a punch. Your father was so lonely and I was there. And she was dying of cancer when we started. There was no remorse in her voice, just justification, as if death gave her permission to destroy another woman's family. Something inside me broke completely, not just my heart, but something deeper. The part of me that had always tried to see the good in people, to find excuses for their cruelty. That part of me died in that moment, and in its place something cold and clear and furious was born. Isabella was my mother, I said quietly, my real mother. And you let her die believing her husband was faithful. You let her die without knowing she had a daughter who would grow up calling her murderer Mom. Madeline, that's not fair. And then you stole my inheritance. You stole my identity. You let me believe I was someone I wasn't, for 34 years. I walked into the study and began pulling books from the shelf. Behind a row of dusty law books, I found the safe. The combination was George's birthday. At least the man I'd thought was my father. Inside were documents that would change everything. Isabella's death certificate, my real birth certificate, listing Isabella Maria Santos as my mother. And the will, in George's handwriting, clearly stating that half of his estate should go to my daughter, Madeline, born to my beloved first wife, Isabella. At the bottom of the safe was a bundle of letters tied with a faded pink ribbon. My hands trembled as I pulled them out. The first was addressed to my dearest Madeline, in my father's careful script. The date was 2 months before he died. My dearest Madeline, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and I pray that Nora has found the courage to tell you the truth. I know I should have told you myself, but I was a coward. I was afraid of losing you, afraid of shattering the family we'd built on lies. Your mother, Isabella, was the most beautiful woman I ever knew. She was kind, funny, and brave, even as cancer was eating her alive. She loved you deeply, Madeline. She would hold you for hours, singing old Spanish lullabies and sharing stories about her childhood in Mexico. She never knew about Nora, never knew about Bianca. I'm not proud of what I did, but I can't regret it, because it gave me you and your sister. But I do regret the lies. I regret letting Nora convince me to hide your true parentage. You're not like them, Madeline. You have your mother's heart, her strength, her kindness, her courage. I see it in how you care for others, how you stand up for what's right. You are Isabella's daughter in every way that matters. I hope one day you can forgive me. I hope you can forgive us all. With all my love and deepest regret. Your father. I read the letter twice before the words truly sank in. My father had known. He'd known the truth would eventually surface. He knew Nora would try to bury it. There were 5 more letters in the bundle. each filled with stories about Isabella, memories of my first 6 months, and the details of a mother I never got to know. One described how Isabella made him promise to tell me about her when I was old enough. Another detailed her final days, how she held me and whispered she'd always watch over me. Tears blurred the ink as I clutched each letter, reading them like sacred scripture. Every word stitched together an image of a woman I'd never met, but who lived in my blood. A woman who had sung to me while dying, who had loved me even through her pain. My chest ached with a grief deeper than time could measure. The last letter was different. It was addressed to Nora. Nora, I know you think I don't see what you're doing, but I do. I see how you look at Madeline, how differently you treat her from Bianca. I see the resentment, and I understand it. But she's just a child who lost her mother. I'm leaving half of my estate to Madeline. I want you to honor that. Give her Isabella's jewelry, her photos, her letters. Tell her about her mother. With kindness, not bitterness. And if you can't love Madeline the way she deserves to be loved, then let her go. Don't make her pay for our sins. Please, do what's right, George. I sat in the study for over an hour, rereading every letter, feeling the weight of 34 years of lies pressed down on me. They weren't just letters. They were proof. Proof of a stolen past, a hidden love, a truth denied. When I emerged from the study, Nora was in the living room, her face streaked with tears. Did you read them? She asked. All of them. Then you know, he wanted me to tell you, to give you your mother's things. But you didn't. I couldn't. Her voice cracked. Every time I looked at you, I saw her. I saw the woman who was everything I wasn't, beautiful, pure, worthy of his love. Her voice trembled with old pain. I tried to love you, Madeline, but every day you reminded me of what I destroyed. A bitter pity rose in my throat, mixed with the rage still smoldering in my chest. So you punished me for it, I said coldly. You and Bianca. Bianca doesn't know about the letters, Nora said quickly. She just knows her father loved you differently. And Marco? Her expression darkened. Marco came to me 6 months ago. Said he found records, he'd done some digging, he wanted answers. And you gave them to him. I told him about Isabella, about the will. I thought, maybe if he knew you'd inherit, he'd treat you better. I stared in disbelief. You thought he'd love me more if he knew I was rich? I thought he'd stay. I didn't want you to be alone. So you told him, and he told Bianca, didn't he? Nora looked away. They'd been spending a lot of time together lately. The puzzle was complete, and the picture was uglier than I ever imagined. I could barely look at it. Marco hadn't fallen out of love with me, he'd never loved me at all. He married me thinking I was the poor, unwanted daughter of a working-class family. But once he learned the truth, he didn't see love. He saw opportunity. And Bianca, she'd always resented me. But now, she had a reason to hate me. I wasn't just the sister who got more attention. I was the illegitimate daughter who took half her inheritance. Where are my mother's things? I asked quietly. Nora looked surprised. In the attic, in a trunk with her name on it. I want them. Madeline, I want them. Now. Nora led me upstairs to the attic, pulling out a cedar trunk marked Isabella M. Santos in faded gold lettering. Inside were treasures I never knew existed, photos of a woman who looked just like me, sparkling jewelry, handwritten letters in Spanish I'd need to translate, and a small wooden box holding a saint's medal and a lock of dark hair. My hands trembled as I touched each item, overwhelmed by the intimacy of it all. To think so much of her, my mother, had been locked away for decades, like she didn't belong in the narrative they created. At the bottom was a baby book filled with Isabella's careful handwriting. Every milestone was there. My first smile, my first tooth, the day I said mama. The entries ended abruptly at 6 months. On the last page, in trembling script, was a note. My beautiful Madeline, I am so sorry. I cannot stay to watch you grow, but I will always be with you, in your heart and in your dreams. Be strong, mi amor. Be brave. Be everything I know you can be. All my love, mama. Tears streamed down my cheeks. It wasn't just a note. It was a farewell, a promise, a gift, a lifeline I never knew I needed. I closed the book and looked at Nora, who stood watching me, fear etched across her face. I'm taking all of this, I said. Madeline, please. We can work this out. No. I stood, clutching the baby book to my chest. There's no working this out. There's no going back. I carried the trunk to my car in 3 trips. Nora followed, pleading, but I didn't listen. I was done listening to lies. As I drove away from the house I once called home, I felt a strange clarity. The pain was still sharp, but beneath it, something stirred. Power. For the first time in years, I felt in control. Not reacting, but choosing. Not surviving, but reclaiming. I knew who I was now. I knew what had been stolen from me, and I would make sure they all paid. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a downtown hotel, a place Marco would never think to look. I spread Isabella's photos across the small table, studying the face that mirrored mine. In one picture she held a baby, me, smiling with such joy it made my heart ache. My phone buzzed all evening, Marco, Bianca, Nora. I ignored every call. Instead, I called the one person I still trusted. Madeline? Carmen's voice was warm, concerned. Are you okay? You sound off. Carmen, I need you to be completely honest. Of course. What's wrong? Have you ever thought something was off about my family, the way they treat me? She was silent for a moment. Madeline, what happened? Please. Just answer. Yes, she finally said. Your mom and Bianca, they've always treated you like an outsider, like you weren't really part of it. And Marco? She paused. What about him? I never liked him, she admitted. He always acted like he was doing you a favor by being with you, like you didn't deserve him. Her words cut deep, but they were true. I'd excused it all for so long I stopped seeing it. Suddenly, I saw my life as a house of mirrors, distorted, manipulated, false, and Carmen had shattered it. Can you find out which law firm handled my father's estate? Madeline, you're scaring me. What's going on? So I told her. The affair, the lies, the stolen inheritance, Marco and Bianca's betrayal. She listened silently, and when I finished, her voice cracked. Jesus Christ. Madeline, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I need to know what my legal options are. I need to know if I can still claim what's mine. I'll make some calls, Carmen said, concern sharpening her voice. But Madeline, are you safe? Where are you staying? I'm fine. I'm at the Marriott on 5th Street, room 418. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm coming over. We'll figure this out together. While I waited for her, I sat on the bed and read through more of my father's letters. Each one peeled back a new layer of deception, new ways Nora had twisted the truth. She had told me my father was proud of my independence and strength. But what he'd actually written was that he feared I'd grown too hard, too closed off, because I'd never known a mother's love. She'd said he wanted me to live simply, free of the complications that came with money. But in truth, he'd hoped I'd use my inheritance to honor Isabella's memory, perhaps by starting a scholarship fund for young mothers battling cancer. Every memory I had of my childhood felt stained now. Every bedtime story, every birthday party, every moment I thought had been love. It was all built on lies. It was like watching my own life crumble in slow motion. Everything I thought I knew had been rewritten in a language I never asked to learn. I sat in that hotel room not just heartbroken, but unmoored, like someone had yanked reality out from under me and replaced it with something crueler. Carmen arrived with Thai food and a bottle of wine, and we sat on the hotel bed eating pad thai and plotting my next steps. I called my cousin Miguel, she said. He's a lawyer, estate law. He says that if you can prove the will was altered or hidden, you might have a strong case. I have the original will, and the letters. That's a start, she said. But Miguel says you'll need more. You have to prove that Nora and Bianca knew about the original will and deliberately concealed it. I thought back to the conversation I'd overheard between Marco and Bianca. I might be able to get that. How? I need to record them, get them to admit what they did. Carmen looked alarmed. Madeline, that sounds dangerous. If they've lied to you this long, who knows what else they're capable of? I can't let them get away with this, Carmen. They stole 34 years of my life. They let me believe I was someone I wasn't. I know. But promise me, promise, you'll be careful. Don't do anything reckless. I promise, I said. But even as the words left my lips, I was already building a plan in my mind. I was going to get revenge, not with rage, but with precision. I was going to dismantle them the same way they dismantled me. Slowly, strategically, and without mercy. I wasn't out for blood. I was out for truth and justice, and the satisfaction of watching their world unravel thread by poisonous thread. The next morning, I drove to the law office that had handled my father's estate. Nora had once mentioned the lawyer's name, Robert Kellerman. According to his firm's website, he'd been practicing estate law for over 30 years and had a spotless reputation. When I walked into the office, the receptionist blinked in confusion. "Mrs. Carey? I thought your appointment was next week." "I need to speak with Mr. Kellerman about my father's estate, George Carey." Her face went pale. "Let me check if he's available." She vanished into the back where I could hear hushed voices. When she returned, her smile was tight. "Mr. Kellerman will see you now." Robert Kellerman was in his 60s with silver hair and warm brown eyes. But the moment he saw me, those eyes filled with unmistakable guilt. "Madeline," he said, rising from his desk, "I wasn't expecting you. I have questions about my father's will." "Of course, please sit down." But I remained standing. "I want to see the original will, the one my father actually wrote." His face drained of color. I'm not sure what you mean." "I mean the will that left half of his estate to me, not the edited one you showed me at the reading." "Madeline, I think there's been some confusion." "There's no confusion," I cut him off. "I found the original in my father's safe. I know what he wanted, and I know you helped Nora hide it from me." Kellerman sank slowly into his leather chair. How did you find out?" "Does it matter?" I asked coldly. "What matters is that you helped them steal from me. You helped them lie to me." "Madeline, you have to understand," Kellerman said, his voice lowering. "Nora came to me in tears. She said you were emotionally unstable, that you couldn't handle the stress of managing a large inheritance. And you believed her just like that?" I asked, disbelief lacing my voice. "She had a letter, supposedly from your father. It claimed he'd changed his mind about the will, that everything should go to Nora and Bianca. A letter you didn't even bother to authenticate?" Kellerman paused, shame etched across his face. "I should have. You're right. I should have looked into it more thoroughly, but..." Nora was grieving. She seemed sincere. "I thought I was helping." "You were helping her steal my inheritance." He winced. "What can I do to make it right?" I leaned forward, pressing my palms into his polished desk. "You can help me get back what's mine. All of it. The money, the house, everything." "Madeline, I'm not sure that's possible," he said, hesitating. "The estate was settled 3 years ago. The funds are gone." My stomach twisted. "The house?" "It was sold. Nora said it was to cover medical expenses. That was about 6 months ago." The words hit like a sledgehammer. That house wasn't just walls and furniture. It was the last physical tie I had to my mother. And now it was gone, sold off as if it meant nothing. "Where did the money go?" "Into 2 accounts, one for Nora, one for Bianca. I can get you the exact details, but the total was close to $500,000. And you're going to help me get it back." "I want to help," he said cautiously, "but I have to weigh the legal risks." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the legal risks of helping someone commit fraud and steal a fortune?" "Yeah, those are pretty clear." He nodded slowly, shame sinking in. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "I want full documentation. Every conversation you had with Nora, every decision you made, everything you ignored. We're going to build a case, and I want them held accountable. I want my inheritance back, and I want them in prison." "Prison is serious." "They committed fraud, Mr. Kellerman. They forged documents, they lied, they destroyed evidence. That's not just serious. It's criminal." He didn't argue. I left with his promise to cooperate. But as I drove home, I realized legal justice wouldn't be enough. Lawsuits and trials felt too clean. What I needed was something raw, something that would leave a scar. I wanted them to feel powerless, exposed, shattered. That afternoon, I returned home with a new purpose. Marco's car was in the driveway. I saw him pacing through the window. He ran to the door as I entered, mask firmly in place. "Madeline." "Thank God. I've been worried sick." "Where were you?" he asked, voice quivering with practiced concern. "I needed space," I said, eyes narrowing. "To think." "About what happened at lunch?" Nora told me. She was really upset. I studied his face, looking for the lies I now knew were there. But Marco was smooth, calculated. He looked sincere, exhausted, like a man scared of losing his wife. "We had a fight. It's just family drama, nothing major." "It's major if it upset you," he said, reaching for my hands. I let him touch me, even though it made my skin crawl. "Madeline, I know we've been distant. I want to change that. I want us to be close again." His voice had a softness that used to calm me. Now it only made me want to scream. I'd like that too, I lied. Good. He smiled. Why don't you rest? I'll make dinner, we'll talk. I nodded, climbing the stairs into the very room where my world had fractured just yesterday. But I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to find the truth. At his nightstand, I found a receipt. A jewelry store. A diamond necklace, purchased 2 weeks ago. My heart clenched. He had never bought me jewelry. It was for Bianca. I snapped a photo of the receipt and kept digging. Behind a line of suits in Marco's closet, I found a small overnight bag. Inside were clothes, toiletries, and a hotel keycard. The logo read, "The Overlook Riverside Inn." My stomach dropped. That was the same hotel where Bianca had been staying since her lease expired last month. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't something new. This was a plan. A coordinated plan that had been in motion for months, maybe even longer. And it wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. Cruel, deliberate coordination designed to blindside me, to strip me of the life I thought I understood. From downstairs, I heard Marco's voice. "Madeline? Dinner's ready." I walked down to find he'd prepared my favorite, fettuccine alfredo with homemade garlic bread. Candles were lit, a bottle of Merlot already breathing. Under any other circumstances, it would have felt romantic. Tonight, it felt like theater. "This looks amazing," I said, taking my seat. "I thought we could use a nice evening together," Marco said, pouring our wine. "I've been thinking about what you said, about us being distant. I want to change that." "What do you think went wrong?" I asked. Marco paused as if seriously considering the question. "I think I've been too focused on work. I've neglected you, us, but I want to make it up to you." "How?" "Maybe we should get away. Just the two of us. No work, no family, just us. That little inn in Sonoma Valley you always talk about, we could go next weekend. I'll take Friday off, make it a long weekend." I smiled. I wondered if he was planning to take Bianca instead. "That sounds lovely," I said. Dinner was a masterclass in manipulation. Marco was attentive, charming, like the husband he used to be. If I didn't know better, I might have believed it was real. But every smile he gave me felt borrowed. Every kind word landed like a rehearsed line. I wasn't sitting across from my husband. I was sitting across from a stranger who wore his face like a mask. Afterward, he suggested a movie. We curled up on the couch. He put his arm around me, pulled me close. I let him. "Madeline," he murmured, "I love you. I know I don't say it enough, but I do." "I love you too," I said, forcing the words past my lips like shards of glass. "I want you to know," he continued, "no matter what happens, no matter what anyone tells you, I'm here for you. I'm on your side." Something in his tone made me sit up slightly. "What do you mean?" "I just mean, families can be complicated. People say things, do things, things that hurt, but I want you to know, I'll always support you." "Marco, what are you talking about?" "Nothing specific," he said quickly. "Just, I'm here, okay?" But I saw it now, the guilt, the tension. He knew. He knew the truth was closing in, and this was damage control. "Marco," I said slowly, "is there something you want to tell me?" "No, of course not. Why would you ask that? You seem nervous, like you're hiding something." "I'm not hiding anything. I'm just worried about you." Time to test him. "I found something yesterday at Nora's house." Marco's jaw clenched. "What kind of something?" "Letters from my father about the inheritance." Marco went rigid. "What letters?" "He left me money, Marco, a lot of money. But Nora never told me." "Madeline, I think you're misunderstanding something." "Am I? Because those letters were pretty damn clear. He left me half of everything, and Nora buried the truth." He was silent for a long time. I watched him process, calculate, assemble his next lie. "Even if that's true," he said finally, "the estate was settled years ago. You can't just what? Claim what's rightfully mine?" "That's not what I meant. I just meant that legally, it might be complicated." "And how would you know about legal complications, unless you already knew?" "I didn't know anything," he snapped, too quickly. "I'm just saying, you're lying." I pulled away from him, standing up. "You know something. I can see it in your face." "Madeline, you're being paranoid." "Am I?" I said, my voice cold. "Or am I finally seeing things clearly for the first time in years?" Marco stood too, and for the briefest second, something dark flickered behind his eyes. "Careful, Madeline. You're talking about things you don't understand." "Then explain it to me," I said. "Please. Enlighten me." "You don't understand how the real world works. People have to make hard choices sometimes. Not everything is about you." There it was, the mask slipping, the real Marco. The man who thought I was soft, weak, someone too naive to handle the truth. You're right, I said quietly. I don't understand a lot of things, but I'm learning. I turned and walked upstairs, leaving Marco in the living room. I could feel his eyes tracking me, calculating what I really knew. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighted with years of deception. But I wasn't pretending anymore. I was done being the quiet one, the convenient one. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and called Carmen. "How'd it go with the lawyer?" she asked. "Good, he's helping me build a case," I said. "But Carmen, I need your help with something else." "What is it?" "I need to record them. I need proof, something that forces them to admit what they did." "Madeline, that sounds risky. I really don't like this. I can handle Marco, but I need evidence, a confession." Carmen hesitated, then said, "Okay, but only if we do it my way. Smart, safe, agreed?" "Agreed. I'll bring over a recorder tomorrow, but promise me, if this gets too dangerous, you'll walk away. Promise me, Maddie, your safety comes first." "I promise," I said, though even as I said it I knew I wasn't going to walk away, not until it was done. The next day, Carmen came by with a small recorder and a strategy. We'd hide it behind a framed photo in the living room. My job was to keep the conversation casual and coax the truth out. "The trick," Carmen said, "is to act like you know nothing. Let them relax. Let them talk." I invited Nora and Bianca to dinner, claiming I wanted to make up for my behavior at Nora's birthday lunch. Marco was hesitant, but I convinced him it was just part of mending things. They arrived together. Nora looked nervous, Bianca looked annoyed. We gathered in the living room over drinks. I noticed Marco and Bianca exchanging discreet glances, familiar and secretive. "I wanted to apologize," I began, "for yesterday." They all looked at me, cautious. "I overreacted. I was upset about something silly and I took it out on you, Mom. I'm sorry." Nora's shoulders eased slightly. "It's all right, Madeline. Everyone has bad days. I've just been thinking a lot lately about family, how complicated it can be. Sometimes we do difficult things to protect the people we love." Bianca squinted. "Like what?" "Like when Dad passed. You had to manage all the legal stuff, right? The will, his accounts. That couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't," Nora answered quickly. "Your father wasn't very organized. His files were scattered." "But you found everything eventually?" Nora hesitated. "I think so. Why do you ask?" "I just wondered if something was missed. An account, maybe? An investment. It feels like there's more to the story." Marco leaned forward. "Madeline, where is this coming from?" "I don't know," I shrugged. "Dad was always so meticulous. It just seems odd that it all vanished so cleanly." "He left plenty," Bianca snapped. "Mom and I have managed just fine." "I know," I replied gently, "but I meant for all of us, for the family." Nora shifted, uncomfortable. "Your father left what he intended. He was clear about it." "Was he?" I asked, tilting my head, because I found some letters in his study yesterday. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The air grew thick. Nora's fingers tightened around her glass. Marco looked suddenly too still. Bianca didn't blink. Nora's hands shook. Marco's jaw tensed. "What letters?" Bianca asked, her voice flat. "Letters to me. About my inheritance." "Madeline," Marco groaned. "Not this again. You're being irrational." "Am I?" I said coldly. "Because those letters were very specific. Dad wanted me to have half of everything." "That's ridiculous," Nora said, voice wavering. "He never said anything like that to me." "Maybe because he knew you wouldn't approve." Bianca shot to her feet. "This is insane. Dad left everything to Mom. We were all there for the will reading, weren't we? Or were we just actors in a performance?" I asked, my voice calm and steady. "What exactly are you accusing us of?" Marco's voice was tight, defensive. "I'm not accusing anyone, yet. I'm just saying maybe there's more to the story than we've been told." "There's nothing more to the story," Nora cut in sharply. "Your father's wishes were very clear. He wanted me to handle everything. Including taking care of me, right?" "Of course. You're my daughter." "Am I?" I asked, letting the question hang in the air. "Because sometimes I feel like a stranger in my own family. Like something essential was kept from me." Nora and Bianca exchanged a look, and there it was. The fear, cracks starting to form. Desperate people make mistakes. "Madeline," Nora said in a gentle tone, "you're letting your imagination run away from you. Your father loved you. We all love you. Just not enough to tell me the truth." "What truth?" Marco snapped, his jaw tight. The truth about who I really am, what I'm entitled to, what you've all been hiding. Bianca let out a bitter laugh. You want the truth, Maddie? Fine. The truth is you've always envied what Mom and I had. You always thought you deserved more. Maybe I did deserve more. You got what you deserved, nothing. Bianca, Nora snapped. No, Mom. I'm done walking on eggshells. You want to know the truth, Madeline? Dad pitied you. He felt guilty. That's why he wrote those letters, made those promises, but he never intended to follow through. And how would you know what he intended? Because I paid attention, because I know you were never really his daughter. The words struck like a lightning bolt. The air turned lead heavy. My heart thudded once, loud and hollow. Nora went pale. Marco looked nauseous. Bianca's face flashed with regret, but it was too late. What did you just say? I asked, voice ice cold. Nothing. I didn't mean. You said I wasn't his daughter. What did you mean? I meant, you were never close with him. Not like I was. No. That's not what you meant. I turned to Nora. Tell me what she meant. Tell me, Mom. Nora's lips trembled. Her voice cracked. You're not my biological daughter, but you are your father's. Isabella was my real mother? Nora nodded miserably. Yes. And you were having an affair with my father while he was married to her? Yes. And when she died, you moved in and took her child? It wasn't like that, she whispered, tears forming. But I felt nothing. Not sympathy, not sadness. Only rage. And you lied to me for over 30 years, let me believe you were my mother, and you stole what was mine. The money, it was complicated. No, it was theft. Marco stood up. Madeline, that's enough. You're not thinking clearly. No, I'm thinking clearer than ever. I turned to face him, eyes sharp as blades. I know about everything, the affair, the lies, the money, and I know about you and Bianca. Marco stiffened. What are you talking about? I know you've been sleeping with her. I know this was all planned. You're being paranoid. Really? Then explain the hotel receipts, the necklace, the conversation I overheard yesterday in our bedroom. Bianca's face went ashen. Marco, what is she talking about? Madeline, please, you need help. You're unraveling, Marco said, desperate. No, what's unraveling is your facade. I stood tall, my voice unwavering. I've recorded everything, this entire conversation. Chaos broke out, shouting, denial, panic. But I stood calm, unmoved. For the first time, they were afraid of me. I have the will, the letters, the receipts, and the statement from the lawyer who helped you alter everything. You can't, Nora started. I can, and I will. I'm going to make sure every one of you pays. The same way you destroyed me. I walked to the hidden recorder and held it up. Every word, every confession, every admission of guilt. Nora was sobbing now, her body racked with loud, uncontrollable cries. Madeline, please, I raised you. I loved you. That has to count for something. You raised me on lies, I said coldly. You loved me like someone loves a stolen diamond, always afraid someone would find out it was never really yours. What do you want? Bianca asked, her voice cracking. Money? We can give you money. I don't want your money. I want justice. I want you to feel exactly what you made me feel. I want you to lose everything you thought you knew about your lives. Madeline, please, Marco said, his voice strained with desperation. We can work this out. We can. No, I cut him off. We can't work this out. There's no going back. There's only consequences now. I looked each of them in the eye. Nora, who stole my identity. Bianca, who stole my inheritance. Marco, who stole my love and trust. You have 24 hours to think about what you've done. After that, I'm going to the police, to the district attorney, to anyone who will listen. I'll make sure the world knows exactly who you are. As I walked toward the front door, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Marco, I want you out of my house tonight. If you're still here in the morning, I'm calling the police. Madeline, this is my house too. Actually, it's not. It's in my name, remember? Because my credit was better when we bought it. For a brief moment, I saw realization flash across Marco's face. The moment he understood he had no more control, no more leverage, that the safety net he'd counted on had just vanished. I left them stunned in the living room, devastated, desperate, and completely undone. Upstairs, I packed a bag. I was going back to the hotel for the night. But tomorrow I'd begin reclaiming everything they took. The next morning, I met with Carmen and the criminal attorney she'd referred me to, Cindy Valdez, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. This is serious, Cindy said as she reviewed the materials. We've got fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy, and that recording? It's a goldmine. What happens now? Now we build a case, gather every bit of evidence, every witness, every document, then we present it to the district attorney. How long will that take? A few weeks, maybe a month. Justice moves slowly. And the inheritance? Can I still recover it? That's a separate civil matter. But yes, with what you've brought me, you have a very strong case. Her words hit me like a breath of fresh air after drowning. For the first time in days, I didn't feel alone. I had proof. I had momentum. I had a chance. I spent the rest of the morning giving Cindy a full, detailed statement. She paid close attention when I mentioned Robert Kellerman, the lawyer who had altered the will. Kellerman's testimony will be critical, she said. If he confirms that Nora coerced him into changing the documents, we've got them. He said he'd cooperate. Then I'll be reaching out today. I walked out of Cindy's office feeling something new, hope. Justice was slow, but it was on the way. Back at the hotel, I found Marco waiting in the lobby. Madeline, please, we need to talk. There's nothing left to say. There's everything to say. You're destroying innocent people. I let out a bitter laugh. Innocent? You were sleeping with my sister while lying to my face about working late. That's your idea of innocent? This isn't about that. Then what is it about? Marco glanced around the lobby and leaned in close. It's about the money. You don't understand what you're doing. Then explain it to me. That money, it's not sitting in some account. It's been spent, invested, gone. Even if you win, there's nothing left to collect. Then you'll have to pay it back. With what? Nora's on Social Security. Bianca's drowning in debt. I make good money, but not that kind of money. Not my problem. Madeline, think this through. If you go through with this, you'll destroy 3 lives. For money that doesn't even exist anymore. This isn't about money, Marco. Then what? It's about the truth. It's about justice. Marco's voice began to rise. You want justice? Then let's talk about justice. Let's talk about how you've been living in a house I pay for, driving a car I bought, wearing clothes I provide, Marco sneered. Let's talk about how you've never worked a real day in your life because I've been supporting you. I work. You volunteer at a nonprofit. That's not work, Madeline. That's a hobby. The cruelty in his tone hit like a slap. Is that really how you see me? I see a spoiled woman who's never had to face the real world. I see someone having a breakdown because for once in her life she's not getting everything she wants. Everything I want? I said, my voice shaking. All I ever wanted was honesty. I just wanted to know who I really was. You know who you are. You're my wife, you're Nora's daughter, you're Bianca's sister. That's who you are. I'm Isabella's daughter. I'm Franklin's heir. I'm someone who deserves better than lies, theft, and betrayal. Marco's face hardened. You're nothing without us, Madeline. Nobody. You have no family, no real friends, no skills, no education that matters. You think you're going to destroy us? You're going to destroy yourself. We'll see about that. I turned and walked away. But his venomous words lingered, worming into my thoughts. They echoed louder than my footsteps, louder than my own heartbeat. For a moment, I faltered. Was I really nothing, as he said? A shadow shaped by others' deception? But then I remembered Isabella's letters. Her strength, her bravery, even when dying. I remembered my father's words, how I had her heart, her courage, her fire for truth. I wasn't nothing. I was Isabella's daughter, and I would honor her by fighting for the truth. Over the next 2 weeks, Cindy built our case like a general planning war. Robert Kellerman provided sworn testimony, outlining Nora's deception and his own role in suppressing the original will. Bank statements showed how the stolen inheritance was used. Nora bought a luxury car, funded multiple vacations, and gifted Bianca a large down payment for a house. Marco had been paid too, trying to conceal the money through a maze of transfers. But the biggest breakthrough came unexpectedly. While clearing out Isabella's cedar trunk, I found a key taped to the underside of the lid. It belonged to a safety deposit box at a bank downtown, one listed under Isabella's name, now legally transferred to me. Inside was everything. Medical files showed Isabella had been in remission. She hadn't died of cancer. Insurance investigation notes suggested the car accident wasn't an accident. And then, a letter. Folded neatly, addressed to Mi querida Rosa, my mother's sister in Mexico, dated 2 days before her death. My hands shook as I unfolded it, breath catching in my throat. I could feel her presence, the final pieces of her truth reaching out across time. Mi querida Rosa, I write this because I am afraid. I discovered that Franklin is having an affair with his secretary. I have proof, hotel receipts, letters, photos. When I confronted him, he turned violent. He's never hit me before, but the way he looked at me, I was terrified. I'm planning to leave him. I spoke to a lawyer. I will file for divorce next week. I'll take Madeline with me. I wanted you to know in case something happens. Franklin has been asking about my life insurance, about what happens to Madeline if I die. If something happens to me, please, make sure my daughter knows the truth. Make sure she knows I loved her and fought for her until the end. Con todo mi amor, Isabella. I sat in the bank's private viewing room, the letter trembling in my hands. She hadn't died of illness. She died because she discovered the affair and tried to leave. And Franklin, the man I'd mourned, whose letters I'd cherished, murdered her. A sob rose in my chest, but I swallowed it. There wasn't time for grief, only justice. When I showed Cindy the letter, she went silent. This changes everything, she finally said. This isn't about inheritance fraud anymore. This is murder. But it happened 30 years ago. Statute of limitations? Not for murder. And if we can prove Nora knew and covered it up, she's an accessory. We brought everything to the police. The officer assigned was Detective Maria Santos, ironically sharing my mother's last name. She was in her 40s, kind but direct. I saw compassion in her face, but also the resolve of a woman who dealt in facts. This is a serious accusation, she said carefully. She said we'll need to reopen the investigation into your mother's death. What does that mean? I asked. It means we'll exhume the body, re-examine the accident scene, and re-interview anyone still alive from the original investigation, Detective Santos explained. The idea of disturbing Isabella's grave made my stomach turn, but I knew it had to be done. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. These cases take time. And what about the fraud charges? What happens to Nora, Bianca, and Marco? Those will move forward separately. The district attorney has reviewed everything. He's confident we can secure convictions on multiple counts. I left the police station overwhelmed. I'd set out to expose theft and lies. But now, this was murder. A darkness deeper than I'd ever expected to uncover. But then I remembered Isabella's letter, how she was going to fight for me, how she'd tried to protect me. The least I could do was fight back for her. The arrests happened on a Wednesday morning. I sat in my car, parked a block away, as flashing lights surrounded Nora's home. I watched as they let her out in handcuffs. Marco was arrested at his office, and Bianca was taken from her condo. The charges: fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy, and for Nora, accessory to murder after the fact. The DA had uncovered proof. Nora knew Isabella had suspicions, knew about the insurance investigation, and helped cover it all up. The story made headlines. Daughter uncovers web of lies and murder in inheritance scandal. My phone rang constantly with interview requests. Everyone wanted to know how it felt to discover your life was built on lies. That your father was a murderer, your mother a thief. But I didn't answer. I owed nothing to strangers. My silence was not emptiness. It was self-preservation. It was the barrier I needed to stop the world from prying open wounds that still bled. I did, however, have something to say to the people who broke me. I visited Nora first. She was being held without bail, labeled a flight risk. When she entered the visitor room, I barely recognized her. Just weeks ago, she seemed untouchable. Now she looked hollow, like a woman finally facing everything she'd run from. "Madeline," she whispered. "Are you sorry?" I asked. "Really sorry? Or just sorry you got caught?" "I'm sorry for all of it. The lies, the money, everything." "What about Isabella? Are you sorry for helping my father kill her?" Nora flinched. "I didn't help him. I didn't know what he was planning." "But you knew something was wrong. You knew she was going to leave him." "I knew she found out about us. I knew she was angry. But I never thought." "You never thought what? That a man cheating on his dying wife might be capable of something worse?" Tears rolled down her face. "I loved him, Madeline. I loved him so much I didn't want to see what he really was." "And what about me?" I asked. "Did you ever love me?" "I tried. I really did. But every time I looked at you, I saw her. I saw the woman who had everything I wanted, and I saw the reminder of what we did to get it." "So you punished me." "I punished myself too. Nora choked. Every time I was cold to you, every time I favored Bianca, every time I made you feel unwanted, I was punishing myself. I stared at her, this woman who raised me, shaped me, lied to me. She gave me love and poison. That doesn't make it right. No, she said, it doesn't. Nothing I did was right. But you have to understand, I was so young. I was just a secretary. I fell in love with my boss. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You didn't mean for Isabella to die? Of course not. When I found out what Marco did, I wanted to go to the police. But he said they'd never believe me, that they'd think I was involved, that we'd both go to prison. And what would happen to you? To Bianca? So you stayed quiet. I stayed quiet, and I lived with it. 30 years of guilt. Her voice faltered like a failing engine. I could hear the decades of denial unraveling in real time, and yet none of it softened the damage she'd caused. Knowing that I was raising a murdered woman's child, 30 years, trying to make it right by being a good mother to you. You weren't a good mother to me. You were a guilty woman trying to ease her conscience. Nora sobbed harder. The sound wasn't redemption. It was collapse. A crumbling of every lie she had stood upon. You're right. You're absolutely right. I failed you in every way possible. But Madeline, please, I'm begging you. Don't let this destroy you. Don't let our sins poison your life. My life was already poisoned. I'm just trying to clean it up. I left Nora in that visiting room and never saw her again. She died in prison months later. A heart attack brought on by the stress of the trial. I didn't attend her funeral. Bianca was easier to face because I'd never expected much from her. She was being held in a different facility, and when I visited her, she was angry rather than remorseful. This is all your fault, she said the moment she saw me. You couldn't just leave well enough alone. I could say the same thing about you. What was I supposed to do? Let you come in and take half of everything? Let you destroy our family? I was part of your family too, Bianca. I was your sister. You were never my sister. You were the constant reminder that Mom chose another woman's child over her own. I was a baby. I didn't choose any of this. No, but you benefited from it. You got to be the good daughter, the sweet one, the one everyone felt sorry for. Do you know what it's like to compete with a dead woman for your father's love? I felt a stab of unexpected pity for her. Not because she deserved it, but because for the first time I saw the wounded child behind the venom, the girl who lost a father to secrets and a mother to guilt. Dear friend, sometimes truth doesn't liberate you. It exposes you. It peels back the layers of comfort, illusion, and denial until all that's left is a raw, trembling version of who you really are. And yet, that version is where healing begins. What Madeline discovered was not just betrayal, it was clarity. In the ruins of deception, she uncovered her real strength. Not because she wanted revenge, but because she chose self-respect. She chose truth, even when it hurt. The Stoics taught us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And when we change that estimate, when we shift our response, we reclaim our power. Madeline did just that. She stopped begging for love from those who never truly gave it. She stopped defending her worth. She started writing her story with her own hand, not with ink from their lies. Her pain didn't vanish, but it no longer defined her. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. The world may not always be fair, people may hurt us, but how we rise from that pain, that's where our real legacy begins. So, if you're standing in the wreckage of your own betrayal, remember this: you are not broken, you are becoming. Keep walking, keep rising. Your story isn't over, maybe it's only just begun. If this story touched you in any way, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. Thank you for being here, truly.